Congratulations. I enjoyed that very much. I want to start by asking you a question. I'm just doing this. I'm not doing my phone. I want to start by asking you a question about how many people have you played this at this festival in terms of lessons?
Include concert or lesson?
Lessons, yeah. So you had 3 lessons. And I'm guessing that you found some things that everybody maybe had similar comments on, and many things that maybe people have different ideas on. See, I think this is the beauty of this particular festival, because you come to this particular festival, and you get to have 3 opinions, and now 4th, right? And the thing that does for you is that it makes you start to become your own musician and become more independent, because ultimately you need to make some decisions on your own, right? And that's great, because the sooner that you can start doing that, the more musicianship will grow and develop and that sort of thing. So the comments that I have today, I want to sort of offer as options, okay? Things that you can think about and then make a decision about. So here's my second question about this. In playing this piece, just in general, without regard to the lessons you've had on it, how much do you feel that you sometimes think you'd like to do, or that your heart tells you you'd like to do, and your brain tells you that you shouldn't? How much do you feel like you have to kind of hold back because of style?
I think very much.
Very much. In what ways?
I think I have to go off track very much.
Did you hear? She said she thinks she shouldn't go off track very much. So my feeling about Bach is that, of course, this is music that was written for another instrument and another time. But Bach didn't wake up every morning and say, "Gosh, I live in the Baroque period," right? And so I need to do this or this or this or that. He just wrote music and wrote music for the way that he wanted to write on the instruments that were at hand at the time. And I think that the decisions that you make about Bach, the things that you decide to kind of hold back or not do because of taste or because of style or something like that, should be those things that are associated a little bit with the instruments of the time, as opposed to feeling like there's some great restraint, a list of things that we can't do because the music's 300 years old, And there are some things that we can't do. I mean, like pedaling and fortissimos and too much direction in lines. I mean, there are all kinds of things that aren't really stylistic. But I think that the thing that would help you the most would be if you could convert over to thinking about the things that you can do, or that you would like to do. Yeah? And so, just in the opening, just as a general reaction to the playing, I think you have a good sound. I think you're a good listener. Things were balanced throughout the performance. I'd like to hear a little bit more variety between the dances of character, and maybe a little bit more variety in sound sometimes. So, in the opening, let me just do those first 5 notes. See, this seems fine to me. I'm a little bit bothered by this. And it's mostly just because I think it's too far away from the keys. In general, you're starting here and you're kind of giving a little up, and you're making the staccato that way. And there's a certain elegance that gives to the character of it, but it makes you not use fingers quite as much as you could, and it also takes away intensity a little bit to my ear. So it's kind of it sounds a little nonchalant to me. And if you were to just go for the same sound essentially, but start with your fingers touching the keys, and then you come this way. Yeah, nothing tense, and so that it's as if you're bouncing off the bottom of the key a little bit. I think that instantaneously defines the sound a little bit more. And the thing, I'm a little bit, and I think it can be, and you can be a little bit more melodic. It's fine. You can voice a little bit more. You could be a little softer. But the thing that I want to have absolute 100% consistency on is that the releases all happen in the same way. You know, when we think about rhythm, you know, there's this intellectual way of thinking about rhythm that we just look at the note values and the rests and we determine when you play the note. And actually the thing that defines rhythm much, much more than when you play the note is when you release the note, right? And so I wish we could do something with this. Yeah. So and can you read that one thought as opposed to hearing this and then the chorus? I actually hear 4 chords. Ready? Right, and it immediately changes the rhythm a little bit because one of the things, especially when you're talking about rhythm, that gives you the very most possible expressiveness is making sure that you're reacting to the placement of the notes within the meter. Right? And so if we're doing the 3 chords, that has to feel like an upbeat. And when you get to this, that has to feel like it starts with a downbeat. You know? And if you add this to it, so there's 2 really different inflections. So that right off the bat, that's a great way to hear variety in the sound. That's right, let's work. So think upbeat. Ready? Great. So I think this is going really well for you. The one thing that I would consider is, since the 16th doesn't have, of course it doesn't have articulation, but just listen long enough so that it doesn't come across as, you know, yeah. It's the same sort of feel to me. There's just sort of a little, you know, it's kind of just, and it doesn't have to be fingery, it doesn't have to be edgy in any way, but just, again from the keys. Now make this different. You know, yeah, the first time it's just that. That time it's more determined. One of the greatest expressive devices that we can use in Bach, and there will be 5 different disagreements about this, probably even in this room. But the way that you choose to group things, for example, in this left hand, I hear you feeling very downbeat oriented. That way. But you know, another option is that you play this, and then you think the group goes. A lot of time organists don't like to cross beats, you know, within phrases very much. But if you're thinking of a line, you know, have you run across the word Fortspinnung before? So Fortspinnung is this great word that's associated with Baroque music. It means just spinning out, that way. And it happens sometimes in Bach because we don't have such a 4-bar structure all the time like you do in later music. Sometimes he's got 9-bar phrases and 4-bar phrases and 6-bar phrases, And if you're thinking about something, I think of this whole section that you're doing, is just having this feeling this way. And if you think of the phrase kind of doing this, then if you're thinking 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, it gives it a little bit more gesture, a little bit more direction that way. Whereas if you're thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it becomes very downbeat oriented. And I can make an argument for either way. Absolutely, because if it's more downbeat oriented, you're outlining this ascending bass line, And if it's less downbeat oriented, it has a little bit more line to it. And you can still hear that. So the direction. So let me just hear you start. If you look at, very often when we talk about upbeats and downbeats in almost any composer, but especially Bach, he gives you a really good clue at the beginning. And if we look at these right-hand scale passages through this, the very opening is downbeat, or each of them start on downbeats, right? But because of the placement of the left hand, all these scales are da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, instead of da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, right? And then when we get down to here, bum 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 bum, and you get to the end of this, and you've got all of these figurations become actually much more about feeling an upbeat. And since it's a dance, I think if you're feeling bum 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 bum, you're feeling this kind of rhythm a little bit more that way. And I say this probably twice a day when I teach. The other thing about thinking about rhythm is that the very most important thing about rhythm is experiencing it. You have your release and you have as I said, over the kind of the intellectual side of just looking at making sure everything's in place, but feeling the motion of it. And so let's try from here one more time and use both hands and just think, see if you like it. And I leave town tomorrow, so you can change it right back. So you got it, right? And then now suddenly we've got something that's a little bit more downbeat oriented. And then back to being upbeat. And it's such a great source of being able to change expressive qualities. And here, this one belongs with that one. So you get a little more right? So wherever the starting spot is. Yeah, good. And then I lead more from the leading tones. Just as a matter of kind of harmonic direction. And again, that's going to go across a bar line. Some people aren't going to like that. But try it. Ready? So start from here. To my ear, it enlivens it a little bit, and it gives you more possibilities. Because if there's just kind of one thing that I would just want to change a little bit about it, I just felt like everything's a little bit too much the same, both in terms of sound, you know. So good. All right. So let's stop. So two things to think about. In the Quran, there's a lot of in the pattern there that you have this sort of thing, and you can really fast. So you can outline the triad D, G, B, A. You can then sort of bring those out if you want, and I think you're thinking of it that way. But sometimes in both 18th and early 19th century music, sometimes it's nice to hear instead of just hearing that, that second, that, and so you might think about that a little bit. And the last parting thought is just in the saraband. This is a very complicated saraband rhythmically. And, there are some sarabands that you can absolutely dance to in Bach, and there are some that you really can, and they really aren't necessarily meant to be dancing to. But the thing I'd just like you to think about and see if it interlocks with any of this is what a saraband does. So saraband is a slow dance, we all know, and the step is left, right, left, right, left, and then some sort of a bow or an acknowledgement of some form. And that bow or the acknowledgement is why it tends to move to the second beat when we do this. And that so very frequently, if you get a really strict kind of saraband, you find that it keeps going to the second beat on every other measure, and that's because of this thing that happens in the dance. It confuses that a lot because you have this 16th note pattern, but you can just look for the places that stop in the middle of the measure and then see if there's a dance step that works. And when you have something like this, with two dotted rhythms right next to each other, think of it as a group of 4 notes instead of two groups of 2 notes.